So, hello, Bernie Siegel.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, no introduction really is needed here, but you're just quickly, you're a physician, an author, a healer, and you looked at a lot you looked at healing and the role of consciousness, and that's something that I wanted to discuss with you. What do you think is the role of consciousness these days, especially?
Well,
Big question to start with. But
no, for me, it's a fascinating subject because I see consciousness in a sense as something separate from the body, because I literally feel that when our body dies, our consciousness continues on. And as an aside, I think that to me is really the explanation for what we call past lives, that I can be born with an awareness of what has preceded me. See, it's not that I have lived 22 lives, if you know what I mean, but I can be aware of the consciousness of people who have preceded me. And so when I'm born, it impregnates me, and I come into this world, and we have many fascinating stories from children who give you information that they couldn't know, but are about the lives of people who have died, before they were born. So I think the consciousness is separate from the body, but it does directly communicate with the body. So our state of consciousness, in a sense, becomes our chemistry, and therefore affects our health and well-being as well. It affects the choices we make, our happiness, a whole host of things. And just as an aside, I won't get into all the details, but consider this. Mm-hmm. Is it possible I became a surgeon because in another life I killed people with a sword? So I come into this world to cure people with a knife. And it could affect the choices I make in profession, in a house full of animals, rescuing things all the time, perhaps because of the awareness of cruelty in a past life, and that you come trying to remedy those things because of the wisdom and the pain in this life.
Mm-hmm. So what's the role of this pain or this karma that we inherit from?
I would say it's trying to help you. I think of it this way, that we're going to school. If you stay in kindergarten, you're going to make a lot of bad choices. That may be oriented only to what makes you feel good and, not really helping the world. But if you're a postgraduate student, in terms of your wisdom, you're going to do things that can help. Think of a Mother Teresa, a Mahatma Gandhi, the kinds of things they were able to do, see, versus a Hitler, and you begin to realize, And so I think that the consciousness can lead us to be healers or destroyers, for that matter, and that we need to stop and think about, why am I doing this? What choices do I have? Because that's something I always say, the only thing I control is what's going on in my head, my thoughts. So I have choices. How are they affected? And I think, how is our consciousness affected? By the authority figures in our life, especially parents, then religious leaders, politicians, doctors, the people who are our authority figures that we get close to, and how they treat us. And parents most of all, because their words are hypnotic. See, what happens to our consciousness? I don't make up these stories, but if you hear your mother saying, you're a failure, you'll never amount to anything, you embarrass us, I'm only dressing you in dark colors so nobody will notice you. Now that woman said in a letter to me, my mother's words were eating away at me and maybe gave me cancer. When she got cancer, she went out and bought bright colored clothing and changed her life. See, she had to have her life threatened to eliminate her mother. But I think many of us aren't capable of that. And religions can make you think God is punishing you and you deserve this disease, and it's a whole host of crazy things that can become, again, impregnated in our brains. And there's a book by a friend that's called The Psychobiology, see, and I think that word is in the title, the psychobiology of gene expression. So our genes are affected by our consciousness. They don't make the decisions. The chemistry in my body is giving them a message. So when you have identical twins, they don't get the same disease on the same day. And one may get it and the other may never have it in their lifetime. And if you ask them, what's your personality, How did your parents affect you? What do you do with your feelings? Yeah, the one who's being a good girl, internalizing everything and never, showing anger is far more likely to get sick than her sister who's raising hell, doing her thing, living her life, and not worrying about what mom and dad want me to be. So it makes a very great deal of difference. Again, back to your state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So you would say we can reprogram our DNA. We can reprogram things.
Yeah.
We can influence our state.
Yeah, the term I use is to rebirth yourself, be born again, reparent yourself. Because if you don't run into somebody who may save you, see, if somebody comes along like a doctor who shows you love and compassion, even though you may be destroying yourself, keep saying, come back. That's what I would do with patients. You see, I would say, come back. I'll see you next week. And they'd look at me like, how come you want to see me? Everybody else tells me, don't bother to come back. Look what you're doing. You're not following directions. You don't fill your prescriptions. I would always say, see you next week. And sometimes 6 to 12 months later, they began to take care of themselves because, well, this is literally a quote from a young lady. You're my CD. I said, what do you mean I'm a CD? She said, you're my chosen dad. I was a suicidal teenager who realized you love me, saved her life, see? Because I just kept loving her. Instead of yelling at her and criticizing her, I showed her she was worth something. Yeah. And I think, so again, but if you don't meet that person, you have to do this for yourself. I always say, get your baby pictures out. Now, I've said that to people and they say, I don't have any baby pictures. You see, because of what their parents were like. And this was a woman whose parents told their children to go commit suicide, and they did. So you grow up in that kind of a home, somebody has to help you find love. And even, God can do it. I mean, if people find that faith, then suddenly God is their father, see, and feel like a divine child, and that's different too.
So what do we do with our baby pictures then?
You put them out and you love that child. See, when I speak, for instance, at high schools, I'll ask if anybody has a baby, like one of the teachers. They say yes. They say, bring it to the graduation. And what do? I hold it up. When the audience all goes, oh. Then I pick up a high school student, and everybody bursts out laughing. And I say, what are you laughing about? The baby was this student a few years ago. And so it's to get people to realize that that child is them, too. And to love that child. I didn't say like, because Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's a good thing Jesus told us to love one another and not like one another, because there's some people I can't like. So you may not like what somebody's doing, but you can love them. Love thine enemies. You find you obliterate enemies because they don't know what to do with love. They're ready to fight, and you're saying, I love you. So again, love that inner child. Love the child in the other person, too.
Like that.
That's right.
That's me, little. I carry that everywhere.
Yeah. How can you not love that child? Right.
The spark, that purity in the eyes.
Right. And parents, because of their pain and trouble, can, damage the child. Yeah. And people have to learn to forgive their parents, too. I mean, and they had a childhood experience that affects them. So it's, understanding all these things. See, when you understand, then you can forgive. And that's something also people need to do to help their state of consciousness. Say, why are you acting this way? Not screaming and blaming, but why? And if you listen, you'll realize we're all wounded. And what we do with the wounds. See, Nietzsche, something Joseph Campbell wrote, I love reading his stuff. Nietzsche said, love your fate. What a statement. You're going through hell. And Campbell said, yep, when you're going through hell, say, why do I need it? That helped me. Okay? On difficult times, the hell then becomes my teacher. The way I put it is the curse then becomes a blessing. See, like hunger makes you get something to eat. Suddenly, what you hate, your hell says, go get some nourishment. Nourish yourself. And then you realize, okay, it's teaching me something. What do I need to do? And then it changes the feeling entirely. Again, your state of consciousness is now changed. And you're not resenting and hating and bitter. It's,
So tell me about the kindness and love that you're just referring to right now. Tell me, is this for you really the ingredients for healing, and this what the planet needs right now and what we should do more of?
What I like is the term kill with kindness and torment with tenderness. I call love a weapon. Because I say people, and I really say this to people because I do it. You know, when somebody's angry at you, like I pulled into a parking space that somebody else wanted. I didn't realize it, you know, or in a big parking lot. And they start yelling at me. Lower your window, say, I love you. Then they don't know what to do with you. But if you started screaming back at them, oh yeah, you know, think of what happens out in traffic, you know, how people crash into each other, you know, resenting, bitter. But if somebody lowered the window and said, I love you, after you scream at them for cutting in front of them or whatever it was, it's like
disarming.
They walk away. Yeah. In the show Don Quixote, Aldonza is a barmaid, and Don Quixote shows up and calls her Dulcinea. And I would love to sing the song for you, but it, you know, Dulcinea, I have sought thee, sung thee, dreamed thee, Dulcinea. Now I found thee, and the world shall know thy glory. Now if somebody walked up to you and said that, say, wouldn't you be pleased? No. Dulcinea, who was abused by everybody else in the bar, says, don't torment me with your tenderness. She can't handle a man who shows up and is loving and kind. And when I heard that, I thought, wow. You know, and I have to say that the poets, the musicians, they feel this in life. You know, they're exposed to life, and so they put it into words. And that's what we have to understand. You know, why you're told to love your enemies, because it is a weapon that really affects them.
Mm-hmm. And does this also
and let me add this, because what popped into my head was a man named Jack Schwartz talked about his experience in a concentration camp. And he said, whenever the German guards were deciding where to send people in, you know, gas chamber or whatever, he would look at them and say, Ich liebe dich, I love you. And it probably saved his life, because they didn't know what to do with him. So go that way, you know. It's a lot harder to send somebody to the gas chamber who says, I love you, than starts cursing you and screaming at you. And then it's a lot easier to say, you go that way. Yeah. And, you know, and I learned a lot reading many books by survivors of concentration camps. Well, even, Viktor Frankl, he said, to survive is to live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering. Okay? And that gets back again to our consciousness. So if you find meaning that you're there, yes, you're suffering, but how can I help others? What can I do? And Frankl actually was alive because a train pulled up, and they were told, this is going to a new camp, much better conditions, you know, a lot nicer. He had a sick friend. He said, take my place, go. I'll stay. Where was the train going? To a gas chamber. They were lying to them. But Frankl realized that he acted out of love. Of course, he felt terrible when he learned, but it saved his life to act out of love. And in the local nursing home, see, I asked, working with seniors, draw yourself today and 25 years ago. And 99% hand you two pictures. I was slim, I had hair, and I'm smiling. I'm fat, I'm bald, and I'm not happy. One man gave me one picture. And I said, Bill, I asked for two. He said, look, on the side he wrote, that's me then, that's me now. Big smiling face. I did not go back to that nursing home for 10 years. Because I was there doing some groups, and because family members were there, and then they left, and I didn't go back. 10 years later, I walk in, and there's Bill's picture on the wall. And I walked in and said, oh, there's Bill. And the man who's running it said, how do you know who that is? I said, because of the effect he had on everybody. Why is his picture on the wall? is a memorial to him. See, he is immortal through his love. Now, you don't see any other residents' pictures of the way Bill's picture is, but he touched everybody there because he wandered the halls helping other people, never focusing on what's my problem, let me help them. And you heal yourself at the same time. Because they always say, when you give love, you benefit, and the person who receives it also benefits.
And then you're probably a better vehicle to manifest whatever needs to be manifested from that consciousness. No.
In a sense, you become like the conduit, the wire for that consciousness and the universal energy to flow through you. And that's something I think very much is going to be scientific in 10 years. Our potential to heal each other, literally, with the use of the universal energy. That it's not, that I'm a wonderful healer, but that the potential is there. And if I can focus that energy that's present in the universe, then yes, I can help heal you as well as myself.
Is that an energy? Is that a light energy?
I don't know how to describe it. The people who do it, I mean, I've been healed of injuries. The hands are incredibly hot. So something is flowing through it, you see. I happen to have a body injury, and when this healer, her name is Olga Worrell, put her hands on that area, I felt like it was two hot irons, because I put my own hands down and didn't feel anything she was doing it through my pants, and it was incredible. And 5 minutes later, I get up, walk away with no pain. And I know people who are healing cancer with the same thing, with their hand, conducting energy. And also doing it in animals. I mean, it's not that I walk in and say, I'm going to heal you, and because you believe me, see, I've changed your consciousness. That's a whole other thing. We'll have to get in a minute. So you may get better because you believed me. But he's healing mice. They're not sitting in a cage saying, oh, look who came in. We'll be fine. Yeah. So in a month, their cancers are gone, and those not treated are all dead in a month. But what I've learned is, you see, again, the power of consciousness. Radiation therapist said to me, I feel terrible. I said, why? He said, we repaired the machine a month ago. I just did the routine check. Nobody put the radioactive material in. I haven't treated anybody for a month. He said, I feel awful. We made this mistake. I said, you don't realize what you're telling me. He said, what do you mean? I'm telling you I feel. I said, wait a minute. You would have to be an idiot to not know you weren't treating anybody. I said, so obviously people had side effects and had tumor shrinking. Or you would have known, I'm not treating people. Something's wrong. His eyes just, popped out. He said, oh my God, you're right. Yeah. See, that's the power of our consciousness. You believe you're being treated, and your body does what it's supposed to. Your tumor can shrink, and that's with chemotherapy, with even surgery. You make incisions in people, sew them up, and they feel better, because they think you fixed their heart problem. Yeah.
So the power of our thoughts again.
Yeah, the body, well, think of this. Monday morning, because this is simple proof. Monday morning, we have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses. Why? Because what does your body hear from you? I hate my life. I hate the trip. I hate that. Yeah. So death becomes a choice. Because once you're dead, you're free of all your problems. You no longer have this body. It's not a burden anymore. You're free. I mean, there's wonderful lines in a story by William Saroyan, in which a young man, he's starving, no money, and he dies. It's called The Young Man on the Flying Trapeze, but he's thinking of the trapeze to heaven. But the last three words in the book are, he leaves his body and becomes dreamless, unalive, and perfect. When I read that, I
Dreamless,
thought, yeah, but perfect is the key word. See, if you were born blind and have a near-death experience, what do you think happens when you leave your body? You see.
Everything and more.
And there are books written about those things too.
Wow.
Yeah. I almost choked to death as a child. I know what it's like to leave my body.
Oh, you had an out-of-body experience when you were a child?
Yes, near death. I put a toy in my mouth and aspirated it and couldn't breathe. And
And
when I
you
left,
remember the experience of it
oh, you don't forget. Because
afterwards.
choking to death is a horrible way to die. I mean, I still feel my diaphragm and ribs, trying to suck air in, and the pain, and I couldn't call for help. I was in my bedroom, and then suddenly I was fine. I was watching the child die. See, that was the other thing I found fascinating. I wasn't the kid. I never thought, you're dying. See, I'm watching the child die. Now I know this is me. I'm my consciousness. I am not my body. So yes, my body that I was in is dying, but I'm out here. And when it didn't die, I was very upset.
Right,
I mean,
but that definitely influenced your choice to become a surgeon, and yet you
I
went
don't
into
know.
science. But now, I mean, when did you shift, or when did you
See, that
decide?
happened when I was 4 years old. I mean, that memory came back to me as an adult because unconsciously, it could have been a big part of my life. But consciously, I didn't spend time thinking about it. I thought I would rather be dead. When I didn't, I yelled, "Who did that?" When I found myself breathing again and back in my body. But, my mother came running into the room. You didn't get a chance to talk about this experience. You're 4 years old. You don't say, "Hey, let me," everybody's, "You crazy kid, what are you doing?" Why? Yeah. So it's just something that stayed with me. But again, faded as a memory.
Right.
I've also had a past life experience. Again, I never sought these things out. That's why I have to believe them, because a friend of mine, I told her how busy I was. We were on the phone and what my schedule was like. And she thought, I'm nuts, I need to stop. So she said, "Bernie, why are you living this life?" I went into a trance with the phone in my hand. That's when I saw myself with the sword killing. I said to her, "My God." And, and I say, this happened because somebody just said it on a phone call. Why are you living this life? And I went through it was almost like watching a movie. That's the best way I can describe it to people. I sat and watched myself do all these things. And so I had much greater understanding of who I am and why I behave the way I do and a whole host of things. And again, if you said it's crazy, all right, but it's therapeutic. So if it helps me, that's what's significant.
Yeah, yes, I can see that. So, no, but it's interesting how you put past life into perspective in this life. It has helped you to step back probably and even go further into this in your lifetime and help even more people when you got conscious of that.
What it helps me do is keep an open mind.
Right.
Because I will hear doctors say to me, "I can't accept that." What they should say is, "I can't understand it or explain it." It's like saying to an astronomer or a quantum physicist, how did the universe get created? I don't know. All right, but we're here. And so I've learned that if I experience something, I accept it. I believe it because I experienced it. Now, if you said to me, "Can you explain it?" I might answer, "No, I don't know how it happened, why it happened." But to me, even my definition of God, you see, is intelligent, conscious, loving energy. And I think those four things are what led to creation: intelligence, energy, consciousness, and love. And I say, why? How do we know we're loved? Because the ability to heal is built into us. I mean, yes, we die, things happen. But as I always say, if I cut myself, it heals. My body knows what to do.
And let me ask you one last question. Is there more ways that we can heal now? I mean, as healing evolve, are we more capable of self-healing ourselves? Where are we now with healing?
I think as life becomes more complicated, I think it gets in the way. I think it's easier for people to accept self-healing or healers when you're living in a simpler culture amongst nature, where you're aware of the ability of nature to heal itself and to change and survive. See, for instance, I always say, look at a bacteria. You dump antibiotics on it, it changes its genes and resists them, and viruses. So we need new vaccines. And the plants learn how to survive all kinds of things. So that's built into us. But our lives are more complicated and more complex. You know, the bacteria aren't worrying about housing, you know, and jobs and credit cards. And so that's why our body needs to know we love our life. See, it loves us. It's built in. But if we don't give it the message that we love life, see, and that we're playing an important role in life, then it doesn't have the healing capacity that somebody else may have who is loving life and loving other people and loving their body, and then their body will do the most it can. So maybe the best conclusion is something Solzhenitsyn mentioned. See, I learned that there was self-healing, that people got over incurable illnesses. They always had a story about how they changed their life. They rebirth themselves. See, they start a new life. Their body gets the message. In his book, Cancer Ward, he uses the term, because one of the men says, oh, I found this book. It says here there are cases of self-induced healing, not recovery through treatment, but healing. And it was as though self-induced healing flooded out of the great open book like a rainbow-colored butterfly. When I read that, I said, he knows the truth because he's lived through cancer. Self-induced, see, not a spontaneous remission or a miracle, it's self-induced. How do you induce it? What's the butterfly? The symbol of transformation. What's the rainbow? Your life in order. Because every color, I do a lot of work with art and drawings, every color has meaning. Okay? And when you get those colors into a rainbow, your life is in order and self-healing can follow.
And there's also the aspect of not being associated to our disease, no, because often I hear it's the cancer, it's not my cancer.
That's right. What I often use the word eliminate to people. See, eliminate your disease so they don't get into killing. Because Mother Teresa taught me something. Her quote, I will not go to an anti-war rally, but if you ever have a peace rally, call me.
Yeah.
So when we wage a war against cancer, and I've written an article about that on my website, you empower your enemy. See, now your focus is on your enemy, not healing your life, see, or your body. So people need to understand, don't get into the killing and the war. See, you can eliminate what's killing you by healing your life and your state of consciousness. A biblical line is, there was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. And this person said it would be far better if it said there was consciousness. Consciousness was with God, consciousness is God. See? And that is really my feeling. That we should translate not into the Word, but into consciousness.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Bernie, for spending this time here and explaining all this and sharing your wisdom. Really appreciate it.